Good day, everyone. I will discuss child development from the womb to adulthood. The first phase of our discussion is from conception to birth. New life begins with the union of a male sex cell spermatozoon and a female sex cell ovum. Development begins with conception. The prenatal period extends from conception to birth, usually encompassing 9 months of pregnancy. Development during the prenatal period is remarkably rapid. It is divided into 3 stages: the germinal stage, the embryonic stage, and the fetal stage. The germinal stage is the first phase of prenatal development, encompassing the first 2 weeks after conception. This stage begins when a zygote is created through fertilization. Rapid cell division begins and the zygote becomes microscopic mass of multiplying cells. The first cell division is called blastocyst. The blastocyst is made up of 3 layers, each of which develops into different structures in the body. Ectoderm is for skin and nervous system, endoderm for digestive and respiratory system, while mesoderm is for muscle and skeletal system. Finally, the blastocyst arrives at the uterus and attaches to the uterine wall. A process is known as implantation. The cell nestles into the uterine lining and ruptures tiny blood vessels. The connective web of blood vessels and membranes that form between them will provide nourishment for the developing being for the next months. Embryonic stage. At this point, the mass of cells is known as embryo. The beginning of the 3rd week after conception marks the start of the embryonic period. This stage plays an important role in the development of the brain. Approximately 4 weeks after conception, the neural tube forms. This tube will later develop into central nervous system, including the spinal cord and brain. The head begins to form, quickly followed by the eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. The blood vessel that will become the heart starts to pulse. During the 5th week, buds that will form the arms and legs appear. Fetal stage. The fetal period of prenatal marks more important changes in the brain. It begins during 9th week and lasts until birth. The early body system and structures established in the embryonic stage continue to develop. Between 9th and 12th week of gestation, reflexes begin to emerge. The fetus begins to make reflexive motions with its arms and legs. During the 3rd month of gestation, sex organs begins to differentiate. The fetus continues to grow in both weight and length. On the 4th through 6th month, fingernails, hair, eyelashes, and toenails are formed. During the period from 7 months until birth, the fetus prepares for life outside the womb. Lungs begin to expand and contract, preparing the muscles for breathing. Now we are on the second phase of our discussion, from infancy to adulthood. Infancy. It is the first year of life after birth. Infants are born with well-developed sense of touch, hearing, and smell. By 6 weeks after birth, infants typically start smiling and making vocal sounds. By 6 months, infants are babbling, also learn to sit and starting to crawl. By 12 months, infants may be saying their first words. They usually can stand with help and may even have started to walk. Trust versus mistrust. In the first stage of human development, infants learn to trust based on how well their caregivers meet their basic needs and respond when they cry. If an infant cries out to be fed, the parent can either meet this need by feeding and comforting the infant, or not meet this need by ignoring the infant. When their needs are met, infants learn that relying on others is safe. When their needs go unmet, infants grow up to be less trusting. Toddlerhood, autonomy versus shame and doubt. A toddler is a child age from 1 to 3 years old. Children of this age are learning to walk and learn object permanence. Like in the first stage, toddlers go through this stage responding to their caregivers. If caregivers encourage them to be independent and explore the world on their own, toddlers will grow up with a sense of self-efficacy. If the caregivers hover excessively or encourage dependence, these toddlers grow up with less confidence in their abilities. For example, if a toddler wants to walk without assistance in a safe area, the caregiver should encourage this autonomy by allowing the independent behavior. If the caregiver insists on holding the toddler's hand, even when it's not necessary, this attention can lead to doubt later in life. Early childhood. By age of 4, the child can run, climb stairs, and scribble with a crayon. By 5, the child is busy learning the language, carry on conversations, recognize letters, words, and use pencil to trace letters. By 6, most children begin losing their deciduous teeth and their permanent teeth start coming in. Initiative versus guilt. During the preschool years, children learn to assert themselves and speak up when they need something. Some children may state that they are sad because a friend stole their toy. If this assertiveness is greeted with a positive reaction, they learn that taking initiative is helpful behavior. However, if they're made to feel guilty or ashamed of their assertiveness, they may grow up to be timid and less likely to take the lead. Middle childhood. The ages of 6 through 11 comprise middle childhood, and much of what children experience at this age is connected to their involvement in the early grades of school. Children learn about social relationships beyond the family through interaction with friends. Industry versus inferiority. When children begin school, they start to compare themselves with peers. If children feel they are accomplished in relation to peers, they develop strong self-esteem. If, however, they notice that other children have met milestones that they haven't, they may struggle with self-esteem. For example, a first grader may notice a consistently worse performance in spelling tests when compared with peers. If this becomes a pattern, it can lead to feelings of inferiority. Adolescence. It is a period of dramatic physical change marked by an overall physical growth spurt and sexual maturation, known as puberty. It is also a time of cognitive change as the adolescent begins to think of new possibilities and to consider abstract concepts such as love, fear, and freedom. Adolescence starts to develop intimate relationships. Identity versus role confusion. The adolescent stage is where the term identity crisis originated, and for good reason. Adolescence is all about developing a sense of self. Adolescents who can clearly identify who they are grow up with stronger goals and self-knowledge than teenagers who struggle to break free of their parents' or friends' influences. Adolescents who still deeply depend on their parents for social interaction and guidance may experience more role confusion than teenagers who pursue their own interests. Early adulthood, intimacy versus isolation. The 20s and 30s are often thought of as early adulthood. It is the time when we are at our physiological peak but are most at risk for involvement in violent crimes and substance abuse. It is a time of focusing on the future and putting a lot of energy into making choices that will help one earn the status of a full adult in the eyes of others. Love and work are primary concerns at this stage of life. People begin to solidify their lifelong bonds. Many people enter committed relationships or marriages, while others form lifelong friendships. People who can create and maintain this relationship reap the emotional benefits, while those who struggle to maintain relationship may suffer from isolation. A young adult who develops strong friendships in college may feel more intimacy than one who struggles to form and maintain close friendships. Middle adulthood, generativity versus stagnation. The late 30s through the mid 60s is referred to as middle adulthood. This is a period in which aging that began earlier becomes more noticeable and a period at which many people are at their peak of productivity in love and work. In middle adulthood, people tend to struggle with their contributions to society. They may be busy raising children or pursuing careers. Those who feel that their contributing experience generativity, which is the sense of leaving a legacy. On the other hand, those who don't feel that their work or lives matter may experience feelings of stagnation. For example, a middle-aged adult who's raising a family and working in a career that presumably helps people may feel more fulfilled than an adult who's working at a day job that feels meaningless. Late adulthood, integrity versus despair. In this stage, some remain productive, active, and continues to live independently, but at risk of diseases such as arteriosclerosis, cancer, and cerebral vascular disease. Issues of housing, healthcare, and extending active life expectancy are only a few of the topics of concern for this age group. As adults reach the end of life, they look back on their lives and reflect. Adults who feel fulfilled by their lives, either through a successful family or a meaningful career, reach ego integrity, in which they can face aging and dying with peace. If older adults don't feel that they live a good life, they risk falling into despair. And that ends my discussion on the different stages of human development.